My relationship with my parents was always challenging, particularly in regard to my brother Michael. He was held in high regard by my parents, and I often felt left out. I remember on my 10th birthday, my parents took me to Michael's soccer game instead of having a party with friends. They also brought me a cake, which I appreciated, but I felt Michael deserved more recognition for his achievements. In high school, I received a stale cake. I began working at Superstore to earn money. My dad took every dollar I made, saying I needed to contribute financially. Meanwhile, Michael got a brand new car for his 16th birthday without having to work. When I brought it up, I was met with threats of being thrown out. Michael, on the other hand, was praised for the smallest things. My dad is a narcissist and tends to exert control over the lives of others. My mom, on the other hand, is quite different. My father and I have a somewhat unusual relationship. It seems that over the years, my mother has allowed her opinions to be influenced by my father, which has led to a situation where she no longer speaks her mind. When I was 14, my father became suspicious that I was dating a boy from my school. He was extremely angry and even threatened to kill me. I tried to explain that the boy was just a friend, but my father did not listen. My mother came to my room and told me that I was too young for such a relationship. I was still quite young for such things, and she never imagined that I would grow up to be. I was genuinely astonished when she told me that I was going to leave the house as soon as I turned 18. I felt that I had already waited long enough. My father had always been very controlling, and if we had had to go out or were invited to a party, it depended on him if he would allow us to go or not. This made our life very difficult. We considered leaving that situation. I had started working at a superstore nearby and was earning money. My father would take every penny I had earned and tell me that I was staying at his place. I had to contribute to the expenses. I told him several times that I would complain to the police, to which he would reply that he would then kick me out the same day and I would end up on the streets. This was the only year that kept me in. That house and I were unable to stand up for ourselves when I graduated high school. I had to get into a college, but my dad told me that he was not going to support my education further, as he had already spent a lot of money on my education. I was not able to take admission to college that year, but that year turned out to be the best of my life. I was fortunate to be hired as a waitress in a 5-star restaurant, which allowed me to start earning more. I informed my parents that I was going to leave and that we might not see each other again. My mother expressed her relief at my decision and said that she would prefer not to hear from me. I rented a private room and moved out of my parents' house. I was able to secure admission to college for a bachelor's in business administration, which made me feel fulfilled and happy for the first time in my life. My routine was challenging, but I was determined to succeed. I had to attend college in the morning, and then I'd work at the restaurant, and then I'd study until late for college. That was a challenging period of my life, but it was worthwhile. I completed my bachelor's and began applying for jobs as soon as I secured a position in a company. I resigned from the restaurant and applied for my master's. I had always been a motivated and driven person, but my family did not offer much support after I graduated from my master's. I was fortunate to have work experience and was able to secure a position at a reputable company. I shared the news with my friends and posted about it on Facebook, as my siblings were still on the platform. My family was quick to congratulate me and express their pride. A few days later, I received a text from my dad, expressing his pride and support. I was touched by the gesture, but I wasn't sure if he meant it in the way I thought he did. I received a parcel from my family, and I was unsure of what it contained when I opened the envelope. Inside was a bank statement indicating that a loan taken out by my father from the bank needed to be repaid. I called my father to inquire about the matter. He informed me that he had taken out the loan to set up a store, but unfortunately, the venture was unsuccessful, and he was now unable to repay the loan. He went on to say that as I had landed a well-paid job, I was able to repay the loan. I'm still unable to understand how my parents could be this cold and insensitive. I'm trying to understand what made them think that I have forgotten everything they did for me. I'm going to have a conversation with them about this. Update 1. It all started when I decided to send my parents a parcel. Inside, I included a letter that was pretty heavy. In essence, the letter conveyed that I had lost sight of my familial ties, as though I no longer recognized my own family. I went on to suggest that perhaps there had been a misunderstanding, as the sense of connection I once felt to my family had diminished over time. When my father received the letter, he did not hesitate to call me. He expressed his surprise at my continued behavior, suggesting that I had not matured as he had hoped. I was taken aback, but I replied that he hadn't changed either. He had managed to stay the same, and since I'm his daughter, maybe I just inherited that trait from him. His response was rather harsh. He said that since I claimed to have no family, that was exactly what I deserved. I ended that conversation rather quickly and wished him a great day. Later that same day, my mom called. Her tone was different, but not by much. She told me that I realized that my actions may have been perceived as harsh, and I can understand why she might have expected something different from me. I also recognize that as the eldest child in the family, I have certain responsibilities, and I'm sorry if I've not always fulfilled them. I'm curious, though, why she doesn't remember those responsibilities when she and her husband have treated me like a doormat for so many years. The conversation then shifted to money, which seems to be a recurring theme in our talks. I pointed out that the only thing that changed her attitude toward me was the money I started earning. I believe that the change in my financial situation was a significant factor in her attitude towards me. When she mentioned loans, I felt it was important to clarify that I was not responsible for repaying them. I explained that the loans were taken out for other family members and that I was not involved in the decisions that led to them being taken out. I suggested that, as they were not related to me, it would be more appropriate for them to handle the repayments themselves. Over time, our family dynamics have unfortunately become complicated by a number of factors, including expectations, misunderstandings, and financial entanglements. The letter I received was the final straw. I tried to set some boundaries to make them see that I'm not just an extension of their needs or an emergency fund they can tap into whenever things get tight for them. It was tough, sure, but sometimes you got to draw a line. Dealing with this fallout hasn't been easy. Every call seems to dredge up old grievances and misunderstandings that go way back. It's like no matter how much you try to grow and move on some occasions the same old arguments and hurts just keep coming up, but this time I'm trying to stand my ground. I'm trying to navigate this rocky terrain of family drama, trying to find a balance between respecting where I come from and protecting where I need to go. Update 2. It all kicked off when my brother came to see me. He came with some heavy news about our dad. Apparently, Dad's been really struggling with financial stress, and it's been hitting him hard. Things got my brother shared some difficult news about our father. I had sent a letter stating that I no longer considered them my family, and when he told me this, I realized I couldn't simply brush it off. I reminded him of a time when our father had told me directly that he wouldn't help with my college expenses. This was not a request I felt was unreasonable, yet it seemed like he had abandoned his responsibility when I needed him the most. My brother tried to defend him, saying that our father's life was already challenging and that I tried to avoid making things worse by getting back at him for past hurts. However, I felt compelled to point out that Dad's life was challenging because he had a knack for making everyone else's life tough too. Felt like he was spreading his misery around. I was feeling quite frustrated by then and suggested that perhaps Dad should consider selling his house to pay off his debts. My brother didn't take that suggestion very well. He became quite upset and asked if I wanted to see our parents homeless. I told him that I didn't think that was a helpful way to look at things. I suggested that if they didn't handle their finances and sell the house themselves, the bank would eventually force them to do it. I proposed that they take control of the situation now and consider moving into a rented place instead of ending up in a less desirable location. Unfortunately, that conversation didn't end on a positive note. My brother became upset and accused me of being the worst sibling he'd ever known. I was hurt by his words, but I knew he was upset and needed time to cool down. After taking a moment to calm down, I decided to call my dad. I felt it was important for him to hear from me directly. I told him that I was willing to help in any way I could, but that financial assistance wasn't something I could offer. I suggested that I could help him figure things out, or perhaps offer a different perspective or emotional support. I was trying to offer what I could, but made it clear that opening my wallet wasn't part of the deal. This whole situation has been challenging for everyone involved. It might be helpful to try to move forward. Family ties can sometimes lead to old conflicts resurfacing. Update 3. I went to my dad's place and took a few photos of the house. I was careful to do this discreetly. After that, I put the information and photos on a real estate app. This was basically like putting the house up for sale without telling anyone in the family. I even listed my dad. I included my dad's contact information in the ad so potential buyers would contact him directly. I thought I was helping, but I realize now that I was wrong. Couple of days later, my phone rang. It was my dad, and he was upset. He said what I did was the worst thing a daughter could do to her parents. He called me a disgrace to the family and even threatened to call the police on me for advertising his house without his permission. I tried to explain that I thought I was helping, but he wasn't receptive to my suggestions. He simply told me to be quiet and ended the call. I never heard from him again, and I didn't receive any calls or notices about it. I realized that things might have escalated too quickly, so I removed the advertisement. I felt like I'd made my point and didn't want to further complicate matters. It's interesting how they still expect so much from me, considering the challenges I faced growing up in that environment. I have experienced many challenges and abuse throughout my life. In the years since, I have managed to build something for myself, and it seems that some people I know believe I should help them out of their financial difficulties, such as repaying their loans. It is as if they have not reached out to me because I have not needed their help, and now that I am doing well, they are suddenly interested in me again. It has made me reflect on the true meaning of family. I had assumed it was about support and love, but I have only experienced pressure and negativity from them. It is exhausting, and I am starting to question whether it is worth my effort. Update 4. A couple of weeks passed, and my father called me again. He was careful to phrase his request in a way that did not directly ask me to cover the loan. I told him I would find a way to handle the rest and even said I would pay him back later, but I was in the middle of moving apartments and needed every dime for that. I was also really set on not getting dragged back into their financial chaos. I told him I couldn't help and made it clear that he shouldn't keep hoping I'd change my mind. My stance was firm. His problems were his to deal with, just like I had never gone to him asking for help. I had hoped for the same courtesy in return. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was mistaken. My father just wouldn't stop. He kept calling and trying every emotional tactic in the book to persuade me to help. It was a non-stop barrage of calls and messages that just kept pushing and pushing. I found myself increasingly frustrated with all this drama and pressure. On top of that, I had this whole pile of... The situation was becoming increasingly challenging. There was the harsh letter, the texts from both my mom and dad, some of which were threatening, and others which seemed to be an attempt to emotionally manipulate me. I felt I had reached my limit and decided to take action. I filed for a restraining order against them in court, which felt extreme at the time, but it was necessary to put a stop to the stress and pressure they were putting on me. The court was able to see my side of things thanks to all the proof I had. After I filed for a restraining order, things did become a bit quieter. I received the official notification about the restraining order, but I didn't reach out to them, and they didn't try to contact me either. It was a relief, but also a little sad when you think about it. It had to come to this, after all. Getting a legal order to keep your own family from messing with your peace of mind is never easy. Looking back on it all, it's been quite a journey. It's tough when family ties can sometimes become a source of turmoil. We grow up thinking of family as a source of support and stability. However, as we navigate the realities of life, we may find that setting boundaries, even if they are strict, such as a restraining order, is necessary for our well-being. On the day after the restraining order took effect, my brother Michael came to visit. He seemed unusually distressed. He informed me that our father had gone missing. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. It has been several days since anyone has heard from him. Not even his closest friends know where he is. Michael believes that I may have played a role in this situation due to the restraining order. He has accused me of causing our father undue stress, which may have led him to take drastic action. I attempted to reassure him that this is not a productive way of thinking, but he was not open to hearing it. As we were discussing this, my phone buzzed with a text message. I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I saw a photo of my dad. He was sitting in a bar that looked a bit run down. He seemed to be in a rough situation, and the message simply said, "Help him." There was no explanation, no location, and no other information. I showed Michael the photo, and he seemed quite concerned. We decided to call the police and report it, but they told us we needed more information before they could do anything. I was feeling frustrated, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I decided to contact some of my father's old acquaintances to inquire if they had seen him recently. It seems that he has been spotted at various locations across the city, always appearing somewhat disheveled and as if he were on the run. I am currently experiencing a sense of ambivalence. On the one hand, I am tempted to disengage from this situation, given the emotional distress and turmoil he has caused. However, on the other hand, I feel a sense of responsibility as his daughter and am reluctant to simply stand by and ignore his potential difficulties. I'm amazed at the twists and turns this situation is taking. Just when I think I've seen it all, I get another call from an old family friend. He tells me that my dad was involved in some questionable business deals and might be hiding from some dangerous people. This is not what I expected. Michael and I are trying to piece together the clues and track him down. It's a bit unusual for us to be working together like this, especially after everything that's happened. But I suppose in times of crisis you find out who your real allies are. In times of crisis, it's inspiring to see people put aside past differences for the greater good. However, this situation is quite challenging, and it's pulling me back into family drama. I thought I was done with it, but I can't ignore it. So, I'm stuck in the middle of a mystery, trying to figure out whether I'm more worried about my dad's safety or the web of lies and secrets that seems to be unraveling around us. Update 6. After getting that cryptic message, I received a message about my father being in a certain bar. Michael and I have been trying to track him down. It feels like we've suddenly been thrust into a situation that resembles a detective novel, but I assure you, it's not as glamorous as it may seem. We spent the next few days following up on every lead we received. We visited every bar and establishment where my father might have been spotted. It's surreal, really, seeing parts of the city I never knew existed. I spoke with people who, as we were about to conclude our search, we received a promising lead. A bartender at a downtown establishment recalled seeing my father with a group of individuals who appeared to be involved in questionable activities. The bartender even overheard a conversation about a meeting at an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Michael and I decided to investigate further. Upon arriving at the warehouse, we found it to be in a state of disrepair. The building was covered in graffiti and broken windows. It's the kind of place you'd never go unless you absolutely had to. We quietly made our way in, and there in the dim light, we saw a group of men arguing. It seemed as though our father was involved. It turned out that he had gotten himself mixed up in some illegal gambling ring. He was trying to make some quick cash to cover his debts, but things had escalated. The men he was dealing with were... The individuals with whom we were dealing were not the type to accept an immediate response. They were quite upset, discussing the possibility of making an example of it. Michael and I were on the verge of intervening when, before we could do so, the police arrived at the scene. It appeared that someone had informed them of our presence. The atmosphere was chaotic, with shouting and running. We were able to pull our father out of the situation just as the police began to detain everyone present. After the incident, we had a lengthy conversation with our father. He was visibly distressed. He was acutely aware of how close he had come to a very unfortunate situation. He expressed his regret for allowing things to escalate and said that he had never intended for things to get this out of hand. It was the first time I had seen him so vulnerable. Michael and I felt compelled to offer our support to Dad in getting his life back on track. We helped him set up a payment plan for his debts and referred him to counseling. It may sound unusual, but going through this crisis together has started to mend some of the fractures in our family. For me, this whole ordeal has prompted me to reflect on what family means to me. It's a complex and multifaceted concept, and at times, it can feel like a shared history is the only thing that unites us. However, there are moments like pulling your dad out of a potential disaster that highlight the existence of a deep and fundamental bond. I'm not suggesting that everything is perfect now, far from it. There are still many issues that require our attention. I am starting to see that there might be a way to navigate this complex web of relationships without losing myself in the process. This is where we are at the moment, navigating this messy and unpredictable journey of family drama, old wounds and tentative reconciliation. It is not the kind of adventure I would have chosen, but it is ours, and somehow we are making it through one crazy chapter at a time. Update 7. A couple of weeks after the whole thing. Regarding the incident at the house, I was at work when I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered hesitantly, and on the other end was someone claiming to be a private investigator. My initial reaction was one of curiosity. It later became clear that this PI had been hired by someone claiming to be a concerned party interested in my father's well-being. As the situation unfolded, I learned that there were more serious allegations against my father than just the gambling issue. According to the PI, there were deeper, more complex matters at hand. He informed me that my father was allegedly involved in some financial fraud schemes that were much more extensive than we had initially imagined. I'm talking about significant sums of money, illegal transactions, and a complex network of individuals. My father had been dealing with these individuals for years, and I was taken aback by the revelation. I agreed to meet with the PI to gain more insight into the situation because if this was true, it wasn't just about family dynamics but also about potential legal implications that could affect us all. Agreeing to meet with the PI was like stepping into a detective movie. He presented documents, photos, recordings, and evidence that my dad had been living a double life that we were previously unaware of. It was overwhelming to consider how much we could have been unaware about someone we had considered our father for so long. I took all this information to Michael and we confronted Dad. It was probably the hardest conversation we've ever had. At first, he denied everything, but as we laid out all the evidence, he broke down and confessed that he had started with small bets and minor fraud. He started with small bets and minor debts, but it quickly became clear that he was in over his head. He owed money to people he didn't want to owe money to. It was a difficult situation for our family. Michael and I discussed it and decided that, despite everything, we had to turn him in. We felt it was the only way to possibly mitigate the damage and protect the rest of the family. We went to the authorities and handed over all the evidence the PI had given. In the days that followed, it was a challenging time for our family. We had to navigate the complex legal process, which involved sharing sensitive information with the authorities. It was a difficult journey, watching our family's legacy unfold in the public eye. However, amidst this turbulence, there was a sense of relief. Revealing these secrets, even in this limited capacity, felt like a burden that we could finally set aside. Our father was arrested, and the case quickly gained momentum. It was a heartbreaking and terrifying experience to witness our parent in such a situation. However, there was also a sense of justice in taking action. Through this challenging ordeal, Michael and I have had the opportunity to grow closer. We have experienced the highs and lows of family life and have witnessed the darkest aspects of what family can entail. However, we have also seen the resilience and support that family can provide in difficult times. While we are uncertain about the future, we are committed to supporting each other. This experience has taught us valuable lessons about trust, betrayal, and redemption. It has also reinforced my belief in the strength and importance of family bonds. It's not just about blood or shared history. It's about the choices you make, the secrets you keep or reveal, and the lengths you'll go to protect or save each other. Update. Last week, we faced a tragic turn of events. Just when we thought we were beginning to get a handle on the chaos that Dad had left in his wake with his legal troubles, we received a call late at night that none of us were prepared for. Dad had been in a car accident. He was driving alone late at night, and the police informed us that the accident was a single-car accident with no other vehicles involved. The news was difficult to process. Despite all the anger and the mess he'd caused, he was still our dad. The reality that we'd never have a chance to confront him or maybe reconcile or at least find some closure was gone in an instant. The days following were a blur, dealing with the police, the coroner, and then the arrangements for a funeral. Everything felt surreal. Michael and I had to pull together not just for ourselves but for Mom too. She was devastated, and it was clear that she was struggling with a complex mix of grief and unresolved anger. It was tough seeing her like this, and it was also difficult for all of us to navigate through this new grief at the funeral. When I saw the faces of family and a few of Dad's close friends, I realized how complex his life had been and how many different versions of him people carried with them. This made me think about the man he was and the choices he made, and I realized that there were some good ones mixed with some not-so-good ones. After the funeral, we gathered at Mom's house to go through old photo albums and reminisce about happier times before Dad's problems took over. It was a way of healing, but it also brought up old wounds. We talked a lot about forgiveness, memories, and how we all had to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward. We're now dealing with the aftermath, not just the emotional fallout, but also the practical aspects of his estate, his debts, and all the legal complexities that it wasn't just a matter of it disappearing. It was a significant challenge, but Michael and I are working together to address it, supporting our mother as best we can. This chapter of our lives has come to a close in a way we hadn't anticipated, forcing us to confront our feelings about death, our father, and each other. It's a process that will take time and may not be easy, but we're learning, perhaps through some difficult lessons, what it means to be a family, to stick together through the toughest times, and to find strength in each other. It has been a few months since Dad's passing, and we are gradually coming to terms with the situation. The initial shock has receded, but the echoes of his sudden departure continue to affect our daily lives. We are just beginning to understand the complexities of his estate, which has uncovered debts we were previously unaware of and legal entanglements that have tested our patience and resilience. Michael and I have been working closely together to navigate these challenges. We have had to learn a great deal about legal processes, about each other's strengths and weaknesses, and about how to support our mother through this challenging period. She has shown remarkable resilience, finding a kind of quiet strength that has kept us all grounded amid the practicalities. There have also been moments of reflection and unexpected healing. We found letters that our father had written but never sent, along with apologies drafted in his shaky handwriting and plans for a future he hoped to rebuild. It is a bittersweet experience, seeing these glimpses of his humanity. We were fortunate to gain glimpses of remorse and hope from a man we thought we had understood. On what would have been his birthday, we held a small memorial with close family and a few of Dad's oldest friends. It was a poignant yet joyful gathering, where we celebrated the good memories, acknowledged the challenges, and shared our hopes for healing. It wasn't just about remembering Dad, but also about reconnecting with each other and reaffirming the bonds that his circumstances had tested but not broken. Looking forward, there is a sense of anticipation and hope. There is still much to be done. The legal matters will likely take some time to resolve, but we are prepared for that now. What is more important and what we have come to realize is how we come together as a family. Our relationships have deepened, becoming more honest and open. Michael, my husband, and I have found new ways to support each other and build on the legacy of the good parts of our father's life, not just dwelling on the shadow of his mistakes. This final update is not the conclusion to a tumultuous chapter, but rather the beginning of a new phase where we as a family learn from the past, appreciate the present, and look to the future with cautious optimism. Thank you to everyone who has followed this journey, shared advice, or just read along. Your support has been invaluable as we close this chapter. We take the lessons, the love, and even the pain as reminders of what we have overcome and what we aspire to become, moving forward together. This is simply the conclusion of a rather tumultuous chapter. It is also the beginning of a new phase, where we, as a family, will learn from the past, appreciate the present, and look to the future with a cautious but realistic optimism. We would like to express our gratitude to everyone who has followed this journey, shared advice, or just read along. Your support has been invaluable as we close this chapter. We will take the lessons, the love, and even the pain as reminders of what we have overcome and what we aspire to become as we move forward together.